may have taken place, and then that'll be it, alright?
Sure. Put it back on replay.
Okay.
Did you have the diagram with the dimensions whited out?
This is,
Yeah.
it's not, nothing's whited out on it.
Okay, I see the dimensions, we just whited out the dimensions on these here.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna give one, another one whited out. There you go.
So you want to use another one?
Yeah, so we just, it's the same diagram, we just whited out the dimensions, that's all.
Oh, okay. I mean, obviously, these diagrams aren't to scale, I mean.
They're not to scale.
From the point of view of where they're drawing things, so I mean, I think
Yeah, well,
it's
I
just,
think
we're just using.
I think they are, because we got them from,
No, I know the diagrams are, but I'm talking about the officers
Oh,
are
no.
drawing things at approximate location as best they can, but I mean,
Right.
those circles are bigger maybe
Oh,
than the
yeah.
scales, all I'm saying, that's all.
Okay, today is Friday, September 6th, it's 2013, the Lynn Police Station on the second floor. My name is Sergeant Stephen O'Connor, I'm a state police officer, I'm assigned to the Essex District Attorney's Office. My left is Captain Mark O'Toole, Lynn PD, and to the captain's left is Detective Lieutenant Norman Zook, and the lieutenant is in charge of the detective unit at the Essex County District Attorney's Office. And to your left is your attorney, Tom Dressler, as you know. And could you just give us your name, please, for the record?
Joshue Hilton.
Officer Hilton, how long have you been on the department?
I was sworn in on August 31st of 2005.
So approximately 8 years.
Just over 8 years.
And how old are you?
I'm 30 years old.
And what's your normal shift that you work with?
I work days 9 to 5.
Okay. Yesterday, which would have been Thursday, September 5th, you were sent to a radio call to O'Callahan Way. Is that correct?
That's correct. 115 O'Callahan Way.
Okay. And what time is this approximately? Do you recall?
Around 11 o'clock, I'd say.
Okay. And can you just explain to us what happened from the time you arrived onto the scene until certain events, after that? Can you just detail the call for us, if you would, please, in your own words?
All right, it came in as a mail. There was.
Just your partner that day was.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You had a
I was
partner?
working with Officer Scally, Paul
Okay.
Scally.
Okay.
I was actually acting as his training officer for the day. I'm not normally in that car, in the Westland car, I'm usually downtown, but.
Okay.
So it came in as someone, they basically acting irrationally, swearing, yelling. We arrived pretty quickly. Officer Bernard was in car 11, he was our single man backup. He arrived, he was actually traveling behind us from all the way from like Breed Square till we got to O'Callahan Way. We kind of were in the area looking for the mail because we assumed it was an approximate address just because 115 O'Callahan Way is actually the main office of King's Lynn, so we just figured someone from there might have saw it. We were flagged down by a female and a male who were the ones that called in apparently. I believe they actually worked for King's Lynn. I could be wrong, but I was under that impression. They said that it was a Hispanic male. He had on black shorts, he was shirtless, he was swearing, yelling, he was leaning up against a tree. At one point he was punching the tree. And they said as soon as we had pulled up, he had gone into the rear of 46 Newcastle, which they pointed out to us. So we decided to head over there to the woman actually said I was worried because I was concerned for, she didn't know the relationship, but she said that either the wife or girlfriend, she said she was worried about, but she knew that there was a woman that lived there. And bizarrely enough, she said to us, "Be careful," twice, and I kind of jokingly, I smiled, and I said, we're always careful every day. And she says, "Well, just tell me you'll be careful." So I said, "Okay," which is strange when I think back at it now, but we approached the house from the behind. Officer Bernard was ahead of me, so he said, "I'm going to go around to the front." So I told Officer Scally, I said, "Why don't you go around the front too with him, and I'll take the rear." as I approached the rear, I could hear the male inside. He was yelling and he was throwing stuff around, whatever he was doing. You could tell there was something going on in there. And finally, I heard over the air, Officer Bernard said that he was in the front. You could actually hear over Bernard's radio when he said that. The guy said, "What the fuck do you want?" or something like that. I could tell something was going on, but Bernard's demeanor actually, at the time, it was very normal, so I had no reason to be alert at this point, so I just walked at a leisurely pace. I said over the air, "Okay, I'm coming around to the front." I walked around, if you're facing the rear of the building like I was, I walk around to the left of it. Since they're townhouses, 48 would be the one on the end. I was in front of 48 when I heard what I thought was a gunshot. But I wasn't certain it was a gunshot. I just thought it was, and I didn't want to say that over the air to cause panic, so I said over the air that hey, I'm hearing loud noises in there. I was kind of waiting for a confirmation that that's what it was from them. But I started running anyways. I got inside the apartment. I could hear a struggle going on. As soon as I turned into the TV room, Officer Bernard, and I observed Officer Bernard and the subject were in the corner by the TV, and there was a gun raised over the head. I could tell it was a gun because there was Officer Bernard's flashlight that was on his gun was on, so the gun was actually illuminated. And immediately as I walked in, another shot went off. It was fired into the ceiling. So at this point, I drew out my weapon, and the first thing I said to John was, I said, "John, shoot him." It was just a reaction, and then that's when he said, "It's my gun." I probably should have realized that because the flashlight was on it, but I didn't realize at the time that it was until he said that. So I tried to get close to the mix, and it was at this time, there was a child on a couch to our left under a blanket, and he was crying. I didn't know he was there at the time. I thought the crying was actually Officer Scally, because Scally was behind, he was in the corner behind Officer Bernard and the guy, who were both pretty sizable guys, and I just couldn't see Officer Scally, so I was under the impression that the first round, or whatever, I thought Officer Scally was down somewhere in the apartment, because the kid was crying. It was a wheezing type cry. It sounded like someone gasping for air to me. So I got close to where they were in the corner, and I pressed my gun up against the subject's ribs. I looked up to see who was in control of the weapon, and it was obvious that the suspect was in control of it, because there were shots being fired, and Bernard was releasing control with one hand every once in a while, still driving his hand into the wall, but punching him, trying to get free. And so I knew if he only has one hand on it, the majority of control is definitely going to be in the suspect's hand. And the shot that when I first turned in there was in very close proximity to our heads. It was loud, and the room was dark, so you could see muzzle flash. It was just really visually stimulating, let's put it that way. And so I said to John, probably at this time, 5 times I said, "John, I'm going to shoot him," because I was trying to make him aware that I was going to do it, because I was trying to position myself to make sure that he was not going to get hit. So I was able to scoop my arm in a little bit in between him and Bernard to make sure that I can get a good angle, and my backdrop was going to be the wall, which would have been on the other side, would have led into their hallway towards where the stairs are. And I fired 1 round after saying to John several times I was going to fire, and the subject fell to the ground. Shortly after, almost immediately, John was able to get control of his weapon. We rolled him onto his side and applied pressure as best we could. He continually struggled with us. It was almost impossible to give him first aid. He was hitting me. I couldn't even get really good pressure until Sergeant Halsey showed up and was able to help hold down his arms so we could try to, give the best first day we could, but, you know, he was, had a bizarre strength, you know, from the onslaught, you know, even after he was shot, so it's just not a whole lot of helping him. It's pretty much, I don't know if you'd like me to.
No, well, we have a few questions.
Oh, no, okay.
How were you dressed that day?
I was in full uniform.
Badge on your chest?
Absolutely.
Patches on your,
Yes.
on your, shirt? You talked about the room being dark. Can you expound upon that a little bit? I mean, was it pitch black, you couldn't see, or just
No.
like shades down type of thing?
Yeah, it was like shades down. There was probably some type of background light source somewhere, maybe electronics or something going on, because, you know, it wasn't pitch dark, but I think the shades were drawn, because actually, in retrospect, from the rear, I couldn't see into the building because the shades were down. But it was dark in there, and there was John's light on his flashlight, which was on.
Yeah. But there's plenty of light for you to see faces and what was happening.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
everything.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Certainly dim going from the outside.
Absolutely.
Cloudless day to inside, anyways.
I think you said you went originally to the rear, but when you heard the loud noise, you went back around to you originally went to the rear. When you heard the noise, you went back around and entered the front.
I was actually at the back until I heard Bernard say he was in the front.
Okay.
Then we weren't worried about anyone coming off the back anymore,
Okay,
so I
okay.
started walking, and like I said, his demeanor seemed very casual, so
Okay.
I just made a casual walk to the front, and I
Okay.
radioed, I said, all right, I'm coming around front.
Okay.
And it was when I got all the way around in front of the first townhouse, 48, when I heard the gunshot, the first one.
Okay. And I think you said you normally assign to that shift, 9 to 5 shift. You usually assign to a cruiser in another section of the city.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I worked, you know, for 6 years and 17 on morning, so.
Okay, so you're familiar with
Yeah,
that area.
quite familiar.
The subject there, did you recognize him as anyone you had dealings with before?
Never before,
Okay, and that address, do you recall ever going to that address before?
not that I recall, no.
Okay. When you say, when struggle was going on and you indicated you were gonna discharge your weapon, did you say anything to the subject at all to stop during any time or to drop the weapon, or was that being said? Do you remember anything?
Other than the fact that I was saying very verbally that I was about to shoot, I was
Okay.
going to shoot.
Okay.
I didn't say any verbal
Okay.
commands, because it's one of those things where giving verbal commands after he's already firing
Okay.
shots is just, you know,
Okay. Okay.
if anything, if shots
Okay.
hadn't been fired yet, then it
Okay,
might have
no,
been different,
it's-
but it was,
No, I'm not asking for reason, I'm just
no, I
asking.
understand,
Okay.
just
Okay.
still working through this myself.
Okay. Okay.
No, I'm not familiar with the flashlight on the weapon. Could you explain that to me?
We have tactical flashlights, they're underneath the barrel. Me and Officer Bernard are both on SRT, so we have them we have holsters that are fitted for flashlights for dark environments.
And that's because you're on the SRT?
Actually, anybody can
Yeah,
get
and
them.
officers, if they buy the holster, buy the flashlight.
Well, yeah, if you buy the flashlight, they
I'm
get us
sorry, it's
those.
one or the other, okay, one or the other.
Yeah, but
Okay, but it's not issued by the department, or it's allowed?
there's 2 different flashlights that are authorized by the department to use.
Okay.
But we have to purchase one of those flashlights, and then they'll provide the holster.
Okay.
Like I said, we use it I was on mornings at the time when I got it, so it was useful so that.
And you participate in qualifications.
Yes, we qualify with it at the range.
So you've been on for 8 years, you passed all the training in regards to firearms?
Yep, I
As
did.
the last time around?
Yeah, oh yeah, I just qualified for, because like I said, I'm on special weapons, so we qualify almost once a month at the range.
Okay. Where's the range?
We were at Devon's last, I was in Devon's in early August. And I'm gonna be there again in September, the end of September,
Okay.
25th.
saying anything, the suspect?
Nothing intelligible, he was making noise, he was yelling, you know, but nothing I can really make out through the struggle.
Now, radio transmissions, you described a couple, as you were coming around. How many radio transmissions do you think you made?
From the time I made the first gunshot, I heard the first gunshot, I made one radio transmission, and that was that. I was hearing a struggle. I said, I'm hearing a lot of loud noises in there.
Okay.
Do you know who made the transmission, that shots were fired? Do you-
Officer Bernard said that. He
Okay.
said shots fired,
Okay,
and at this, I was actually trying to apply pressure to the wound, and my radio transmission then was, I actually said, we're gonna need at least
So-
one ALS
okay,
unit.
so that transmission on shots fired was after, it wasn't after the first shot was fired?
No, it
after,
was,
okay.
it was at the end of it.
The
'cause it was-
conclusion, okay.
Yeah, it was, you know, there was no time to make transmissions, it was just,
Okay,
you know, at that point, Bernard was literally fighting for his life, and, like I said, I radioed, we need at least one ALS unit, because I was under the impression that there was someone else hurt in there. I thought it was Scally, but I could hear something that sounded like someone else was hurt in there, I didn't know who it was.
And you have some medical training?
Yes,
Okay. Are you an EMT?
I am not an EMT,
Okay.
just the first responder training we
Okay.
get it
Okay.
here, every year.
And the subject was not handcuffed?
He was never placed in handcuffs.
Okay. I think you said there were two people you talked to who you believe worked for the Kingsland management. Was there anyone else that you may have talked to or at any point?
No, just,
A mailman or?
there was a mailman there, I never spoke with him.
Okay.
I think he was more,
Okay,
after everything had happened, he was speaking to some of the responding officers.
okay. Anyone else do you remember on scene or?
No, just, the woman, I think her name was Mary Sue or Sue Ellen,
Okay.
something like that. And
Okay.
then there was a guy who was a large guy who was dressed like he was a maintenance guy.
Okay.
Now, when this woman says, be careful, did you think she was just trying to be kind, or was there a reason behind her saying that?
Well, I think she probably was just trying to be kind, but I think she was scared. That what made me think that, you know, something scared her.
And she didn't so she didn't say that she knew this subject or?
Actually, John Bernard asked her if she knew his name, and she said she didn't know who he was.
Okay,
I think she was familiar with the female that lived there, though.
okay.
Because she did mention that.
And she expressed some
worried about
concern because the subject causing the disturbance,
when
she
it's-
saw go into that residence where there was a female who she knew lived there.
Correct.
Okay,
We weren't even certain if he lived there.
okay. So he could have broken in there.
Right, he could have just
Really?
walked in
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
Did you remember, what do you remember Officer Bernard saying, if anything, when you're outside, as you're coming around?
He had said that he was in the front. At one point he said he's coming to the door, and then he said, all right, we're in the front. And that was the last thing that he said over the air.
Okay. Now, when you leave the rear, come to the front, you see the struggle going on, what do you remember hearing from any of the officers, if anything?
To be honest, I can't remember anything specific they were saying in the struggle. The only thing that I do remember John saying was, he expressed, I don't remember his words, he expressed it was his gun when I first said to shoot him, when I first walked in.
Do you remember him saying anything about shooting the suspect?
I don't.
Okay, but you do recall yourself saying that?
I said probably 5 times, and that's being, you know, I probably said it more than that, but I said it at least 5 times, I'm gonna shoot him.
And the reason you said that was?
Well, I was trying to alert John that we were in such close proximity, and it was just kind of one of those things where I was trying to make sure that, you know, John was okay with it, that he was gonna be clear of the shot.
Okay. And the reason you decided to shoot him was because of the struggle that appeared to be not going to, he wasn't gonna give up?
he wasn't gonna give up, and it was only a matter of a few inches, or one of those bullets turns into shrapnel. All I could think of is that first round that went into the ceiling when I turned the corner. If John had been directing it towards me, I'm like, one of these is gonna catch one of us. And it didn't look like it was a winning battle when I walked in, let's put it that way.
So they, between the two of them, they couldn't get control of him
No,
and his control of the weapon.
they couldn't get control of the weapon.
Do you remember how high up the weapon was? Was it, did the
Only-
subject have his arms fully extended up, or was it?
When I came in, it was more towards, it seemed like it was more towards the middle of the room, and it had gone up into the corner.
So his arm was pretty much extended?
Yeah, as the shot went off,
Okay.
it kinda, I don't know if that, it might have done it by pulling the trigger, but it seemed like it was extended more towards the middle of the room when I first walked in there.
Okay.
But as it went on, it started going more towards the corner, and
Okay,
I had also, just split second thinking that he could have been starting to bring it down where John wouldn't have been able to reach it anymore also.
okay.
So your observations of the struggle, it was contained to that one corner of the living room by the television, correct?
Yeah, oh yeah, I'd never, not since I was in there, it was always in that corner.
Okay, and it never made it back to the kitchen area?
No.
Or the living room?
No, never.
Do you recall it after the incident going into any of the other rooms in the house, or?
I went into the kitchen to wash my hands after Tim Halsey took over because I was covered up to my elbows in blood.
Okay.
What observations did you make in the kitchen?
If any?
I didn't make any.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, this is a diagram of the condo. The top box would basically is the first floor
Mm-hmm.
where the incident was confined to. Is it Penn, right? If you put a number 1 and circle it, I think when you first saw Officer Bernard, when you entered the apartment, obviously you entered the front door, is that correct?
Yes.
Alright, can you put like a number 1 and circle it, where you first saw Officer Bernard and the subject struggling?
Where they were or where I was?
How about we'll start where they were?
They were here in this corner right here.
Okay. So number 1 represents the first spot you saw Officer Bernard and the subject struggling.
Correct.
And with the number 2, if you could circle it the same way, can you put your location when you first observed that?
I was right in the doorway.
And then at one point you said you positioned yourself next to Officer Bernard, and if, correct me if I'm wrong, you said you had your arm between Bernard and the subject trying to create some distance as you were
Right.
announcing your plans to shoot the subject,
Right.
or to shoot. What side of what side of Officer Bernard? Can you put put a 3 and circle a 3 on the side? I absolutely know it's not the scale.
Right.
But just put a 3 and circle it on the side of Officer Bernard that you were at when this was taking place, if you follow me, if you don't understand.
Nope, I understand exactly what you're talking about. I had gotten closer so that I was right behind them in front of them in the corner, between the door and their corner.
And you talked about, as you were planning to shoot, you were planning your backdrop.
I wanted to make sure that I wasn't hitting John, yeah.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the wall that you had planned for your backstop. I think that's the term you used.
Yeah, I could see that wall was there, so I knew that if John was over here and I'm at that wall, that I could make sure that, that John couldn't be there,
Sure.
basically.
So what wall, with the number 4 circle, which wall did you choose as your plan
Right
to
here.
be your backstop? Okay. Did you ever see the child after this incident was over?
I didn't.
You never saw the child?
No, my first, after we radioed ALS, I put pressure on him and I looked at John and I said, "Where's Paul?" Because like I said, I thought that Paul was injured somewhere,
Mhm.
and he told me he just took the kid upstairs. And I didn't ask any other questions, but I really didn't even know what he was talking about.
Okay.
So, you never actually saw Paul in this struggle, or you didn't?
I never did. I don't know if it was just, my eyes were so much drawn towards the gun with, the light on and everything. It was just, that's where my attention was. I never saw Paul. He was apparently right there.
So he could have been in this,
Oh, he absolutely was there, yeah.
okay.
But I never made an observation of him.
So up until this point with the crying, it was your opinion that Paul was injured?
Yes.
Because you didn't see him and you heard the crying?
Right.
So your mindset was that Paul was hurt somewhere in the apartment?
Yeah. The crying sounded like someone gasping for air. That's what I visualized, was he
Sure.
was, like a sucking chest wound or something. That's just what it seemed like to me at the time.
When a subject was shot and he fell to the ground, if you could put, I think we're in 5 with the circle, if you could put where the subject landed after he was shot in first aid, he was rendered first aid, where would that have been?
It's almost in the same spot where my 2 is, where I first saw them, because he fell backwards here. So we were in the,
So
we were back in the doorway here. He fell, because he was standing here, so he fell back here and landed kind of halfway into the hallway here.
Okay.
So number 1 represents the area, you originally saw the struggle.
Yes.
2 is your original position when you first saw the struggle.
Mhm.
3 is, what was 3 now?
3 is where I positioned myself.
Right.
In comparison to where the struggle was.
And 4 was the backstop, the wall you had planned to use it as your backstop.
Yeah.
And then 5 represents where the subject fell to the ground after being struck.
Right.
So conceivably, Paul could have been on the other side of Officer Bernard.
Yeah,
He was, okay.
he would have been in the corner,
Okay,
and then the subject would have been up against him, and Bernard was, so he was, I guess the subject was actually sandwiched in between Paul
okay.
and Bernard, but I never even saw him.
He wasn't evident from your position?
No,
Okay.
no.
After you fired your weapon, what did you do with your duty weapon after you fired it?
I holstered it. It wasn't until I was doing first aid that I realized, I happened to look down and see that I was locked back because I had a stovepipe.
And what did you do at that point?
I kept it that way because I was too busy doing that. When Sergeant Hallisey came in, I said something to him, so I didn't know if it was supposed to be secured, and he just said leave it like that, so I just left it that way all through the hospital.
At some point, did you turn your weapon over to somebody at some point in the day?
Yes, at the hospital I turned it over to Lieutenant Reddy.
You turned your weapon over and the magazine that was in the weapon as well?
Correct.
And you had 2 magazines on your duty belt, is that correct?
Correct. Those are still with my duty belt though.
Yeah, okay. So you fired 1 round?
1 round.
No, I don't. Did you have any injuries or anything, visible injuries from the incident?
No, nothing.
Okay,
Absolutely nothing.
okay.
Is there anything that you'd like to put on record that we didn't ask you, think is important at all, that we didn't ask and you wanna point, or anything you wanna point out? If it's not, that's fine, but anything you'd like to put on record?
No, not really.
Can I just clarify?
Absolutely.
At the point at which you drew your weapon, is it fair to say that that was because the suspect had control of the weapon, of the other firearm?
Yeah, absolutely. It was just one of the force continuum thing. There was a gun out and we didn't have it, so it felt that that we had to have one out also. You know what I mean, to defend ourselves.
And then there was several rounds discharged that you heard?
Yeah.
And it was clear to you that the suspect still had control of the weapon, correct?
Correct.
And you said at least perhaps 5 times or maybe more, I'm going to shoot you, in the presence of the suspect and Officer Bernard, correct?
At least 5 times.
Okay, and during that period of time, this suspect, you were in close proximity to him when you said those things, correct?
I was right next to him.
Okay, he had every opportunity to stop, to yield control of that weapon, drop the weapon, or cease his resistance when you said that several times, and he did not do so, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And it's true, is it fair to say that the reason you discharged your weapon at him is because you were in fear for your life and that of Officer Bernard and the other officers and civilians in the area?
Absolutely.
And you had no less drastic means available to protect yourself and others from death or serious bodily harm?
Correct.
And all of this happened in a very short period of time, in terms of between the time you entered the living room and the time that you had to discharge your weapon. Are we talking about seconds, or are we?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it seems like a ton of stuff happened, and I made 1,000 decisions. But when I think back, it was probably, 5 seconds that we were in there before I actually shot around him.
That's all I have, thank you, I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, just quickly, when you were making the statements that you were gonna shoot him, during that time, you were still able to assess the subject's level of control over the weapon?
Correct.
And did
Yeah.
it diminish?
No, it never did.
Okay.
I don't know if it was what his mental status was, but he didn't respond to even John punching him. You see John, he's a sizable guy. He hit somebody,
Okay.
and there was no reaction whatsoever. So it was obvious.
And
We knew something was going on.
Even after the assessments throughout your observations, it didn't diminish?
No.
And you made a decision?
Right. Correct.
You used the word force continuum.
Yeah.
That's a concept that you learned as a direct result of your police training, correct?
In the academy.
In the
correct.
academy,
Just quickly, I know I talked to you briefly at the scene right after the incident. And it's probably my misinterpretation, because it was a very brief conversation, that I had been under the understanding that you went around to the back door and went in through the back door, but it's
Right. No,
clarifying today you went around, that's it, okay.
Right.
Okay, I might have presumed that you went in the back, but you went in the front door.
Correct.
Okay.
Josh, any military experience?
No.
Is this your first police officer involved shooting?
Yes, it is.
I'm all set, Cap.
Do you have any questions, Josh? Anything that,
One question I have is just, I don't know what the next step after this really is, as
Well-
far as how you guys follow up. Is there another interview, or?
Do you discuss this off record about, or?
No, we understand, I don't expect there to be another one.
unless there's
Unless there's something you
some
want.
evidence or something else where we need clarification on something, but you pretty much explained in very minute detail
Okay.
this incident. So,
Yeah, if you wanna reach out to us.
And if you-
Yeah, if anything comes to our attention
Yeah.
that Josh feels that he needs to let you know, we'll certainly contact you
Yeah.
and make sure that it comes to your attention.
And I think the next step is, we're still interviewing some of the people, we're still reaching out to some EMT people that were on scene, and we still have some people to talk to.
Okay.
So the next step is, we're still
like any
investigation.
investigation.
It's still an open investigation.
It's,
Oh, I understand.
it's a larger scale investigation, but we still have some interviews and the whole investigatory process.
So this is the district attorney's investigation because somebody is deceased? That would happen in anybody who dies in Lynn.
I understand that.
So we're gonna work with the Lynn police, compile all the information there is to compile, submit it to the district attorney, and he'll make his findings. So that's what's gonna happen.
Okay.
If I could just ask you, Josh, if you wouldn't mind, please, just if you would sign that and date it, please. Today is the 6th, September 6th. Thank you very much. And we're gonna go off record, it's 5/29.
So Sergeant, the only thing I need is those three, copies of those three
Absolutely,
documents.
yeah.
The three that were signed.
Yes, so I think we can ask one.
Okay. That would be great. Then I'll, whenever you can send me a copy of the interview, the